Hello and welcome to the What the Falk Sunderland preview podcast ahead of Saturday's proper early kickoff against Boro. As always, I'm joined by the Boro Breakdown Podcast to preview the game. However, today we've got Matt, which is the only member of the podcast I've yet to have on the show, which means I've officially completed the Boro Breakdown. Firstly, what do I win? Second of all, how are you, mate?
I don't know what you win, actually. That's quite a good question.
3 points?
Well, I don't know about that. I wouldn't go that far. We'll think on that one. But yeah, I'm good. Football wise, I'm a little bit and ahhing at the moment with how we've started. But personally, I'm all good. Yeah, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Not bad. Yeah, not bad, mate. Looking forward to it. Look, we could have the conversation about Derby or not a Derby. I enjoy Sunderland, Middlesbrough. That we'll leave it at that. But some call it Derby, some don't. But one thing that's for sure, I think it's always tasty. Like going back to the Cattermole versus Leadbitter fight, which ended up being the other way around eventually. Last minute goals. It was always an entertaining game and always a game that both teams wanted to win. I think we both look forward to it, no matter how we class it. But how are you feeling ahead of the game with your form and stuff like that?
I think the game as itself, it's always a very exciting game to look forward to. I know as Boro fans, it's one of the first games we look at, whether it's a derby or not. It's always one of the first, just because I think we've both got such long trips. Most away days are just exhausting long trips down the country. So I think to have a relatively close one's pretty good. I'm excited for the game. There's obviously always nerves there when it's Sunderland. I'll call it a local rivalry. That's the term I'll use. But excited for it, nervous for it because you guys are in really good nick at the moment. But as for Boro, it's a strange one. It's really, really strange because everything in terms of our numbers, the performances, how we've attacked, how we've created, how we've even defended this season, we're at the top of the charts for most stats. I looked at, expected goals against, expected goals for. I've looked at chance creation, and we're both up there. We're both right up there for pretty much everything. The big difference is you guys have actually scored the goals, whereas we haven't. We have really struggled at times this season due to some of the teams we've played and how they've set up against us. And it's been a really frustrating running theme, really. We started the season, we had a 1-0 win over Swansea, which was actually a big win for us because it was the first time we'd won on the opening day for a decade. So we weren't bothered how we got that win, but it was a win. It was a clean sheet, which, are quite rare under Carrick with how we play. So it was like the perfect start for us, really. And then we looked ahead and we thought, right, Derby away, Portsmouth at home. What a great opportunity this is to really, because we are incredibly slow starters and we have been for as long as I can remember. And then we go and follow it up with a defeat at Derby, which was all our own doing. And I've never seen us dominate a game and come out on the losing side. Never mind. I mean, to draw that game would have been a crime, but to lose it was unbelievable. Isaiah Jones with a horrid back pass from the halfway line, which barely even reached. I don't even think it reached past the centre circle. Gifted them the lead, and then Derby did what I think a lot of teams have done really well against Boro this season: is they just sit deep. They sit deep in a low block. They say, "Come and break us down," and Boro just can't do it. It was the same against Pompey the following week. We gifted them a lead and we ended up going 2-1 down, and it was a case of us knocking on the door for pretty much 70 minutes again. Dominance, shots, possession, territory. We just couldn't get through. It took a penalty in the end for us to get a point there. And then barring the Cardiff result, which was a good result away from home, we had exactly the same against Preston at the weekend. They got back into the game due to us just switching off defensively, and the second half was the same. It was Boro, possession, territory, without ever being able to break through. So I don't know if it's the type of teams we've played, how they've set up, but I do think this game will suit us a lot more. The one real high this season was the Leeds game away in the Cup. That was probably the only time this season we've played a side who've actually attacked us. And because they did that and they went blow for blow with Boro, they left us so much space. And that was our second string team. And we could have had 4 or 5. We absolutely wiped the floor with Leeds at Ellen Road. So that's what we can do against teams that play football. But our Achilles heels are teams who sit deep. So this is a tough game on paper for us, but I honestly believe the type of game it could be might suit us. I mean, it might suit you guys as well, but I think it'll suit us too.
I wanted to ask about that because, like, when you look through the results, look, I did watch the Leeds game. I sat and watched it, and like, the mixture of Leeds being really bad and you've been really good and clinical on the break. But I also seen the highlights from the Stoke game, which was they were both League Cup games for people who went away. You lost 5-0 to Stoke, and it was your second string team. But then you look at the league results, which you've just sort of ran through, and I don't know if it's just me, and you'll be able to tell me better because you've watched all the games full 90 minutes. But it strikes me as a lot of the games you have a lot of the territory, you have a lot of the possession, and some games like Leeds, you're absolutely fine. You can blow them away. Your Ponties, your Derbies, your ones who are going to sit back who've just been promoted, you struggle against. We had a discussion last year. Now, look, it was pointless in the end because we appointed Michael Beale. But there was a theme that Tony Mowbray, some people felt he had only one plan. It was a plan A, and if plan A didn't work, we were a bit knackered. I'll not get into the semantics of it, but there was a discussion around it. I know he's not got any pressure on him, but is there a feeling with Carrick that he needs more of a plan B for you to be as successful as you want to be?
Potentially. I think we've seen a few things that we've done differently. We are going a little bit longer than we were previously, so we're not afraid to try and lob the ball into the channels if necessary. Clark's very good with his feet. He can distribute the ball out diagonally to the right hand side, or he can play Latin behind or Tommy Conway. So we have changed our setup slightly. We've gone a bit longer. We have been a lot better, I think, with our press. We've won the ball back a lot quicker and turned the ball over a lot quicker than in terms of dispossessing the opposition a bit quicker this season. So there's been tweaks there, but I think Michael Carrick he believes extremely strongly in our style of play, our philosophy. And I think if you were to ask him, he'd just want to make plan A better. I think he's willing to tweak it, but it's not going to be a case of ripping it up. I think the one thing we probably need to do, because I think it works perfectly away from home. We've always been a really good away side under Carrick. And as I say, when games are more open, it suits us. But our Achilles heel is just breaking teams down. And I think all we can do in that situation is, one, be more clinical, because I think the Portsmouth game, we had 30 shots. There was another game this season where I think we borderline had, I think it was 29 shots. So there is a massive degree of it that isn't on Carrick. It is a case of our strikers just not being clinical enough, which is a problem. And there's nothing he can do about that, really. But then there is a degree, I think, where sometimes we are a little bit too slow in the build-up, a little bit too ponderous, and we do have to quicken things up a little bit. So I don't think we're far away. I think the data backs up that we're doing a lot of things right. Maybe it's a case of just waiting for things to fit for us, waiting for us to just, click into gear and really go on a run. So yeah, under pressure, not yet. But what I will say about Carrick is this is the first time I think he's got the squad to do it. When he first come in, he had loans, really good loans, and we had a brief flirt with Sheffield United for top two. Season after, being last year, was a complete rebuild with so many, brand new players that were very young. He did well to get us eighth in the end, to be fair, given our shocking start last season. However, this year, with the way we've recruited, and we've recruited very well, it's a top six squad at least. So there probably is a bit of pressure on him to deliver playoffs this season. So yeah, fingers crossed that comes true. Still a long way to go.
I think I've probably skipped too far ahead in the conversation, so I'll pull myself back a little bit. Looking at the Preston game, what I've realised over the kind of 4 years of doing this, and you probably realise it from the opposite side, is that you can get all the stats collected, you can look at everything that's on there, and 9 times out of 10, what matters most is how the fan base feels and the momentum that the team is either feeling or not feeling. So you come away from Cardiff 2-0 win. Look, I know the bottom of the league, but we beat them as well. They're not the worst side in the league, I don't think. I could be proven wrong with that, but I didn't feel like they were when we come up against them. I thought they were quite decent. Yeah. We had a Burnley fan who beat them 5-0, and he went, actually, they were quite good. So, you take that off the back of a 5-0 defeat in the Cup, then you think, right, Preston at home. Preston are like just consistently 10th or 11th. So you think Preston at home's a winnable game. You had six shots on target, like in the double figures for shots in general. They had 1 shot on target, I think, and they score it. How's the fan base feeling at the minute?
I think the one word's frustration. I mean, Obviously, I'm a part of the Boro Breakdown, but there's quite a few other Boro podcasts that I follow, and I think every single one, every single podcast I've seen within the title of the podcast was the word frustration. That's literally the buzzword right now. I think most Boro fans are seeing the right things. We're seeing good things. I think that's probably why we're frustrated. It's because we are doing a lot of good stuff. We're doing a lot of good things, and we've got a really good team, and I think we know the potential of it. But it is just frustration. It's like I said, you win the opening game, you want to kick on. Derby and Pompey, we get 1 point from both. And then again, you get a good win against Cardiff, which I feel like we needed just to go into that international break with something to come away with something going into the international break. It banished all the sort of the frustration prior to that. And you see this as a fresh start. And as you say, Preston's away record was appalling up until that point. They'd conceded a ton of goals. Didn't look all that good going forward. And to be fair, Preston were not good at the Riverside either. I didn't see much to suggest that they're going to be anything special. They're not going to be 10th or 11th, in my opinion. They looked way off it. They looked bang average at best. But again, we get the early goal. And for me, the early goal was everything. I thought if we get the early goal, that's big in Boro games, because that's when the opposition has to then come out. They have to come out of that low block, and they have to then open up, try and chase. And I thought, right, that's when we'll probably then go, all right, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. But they got to go back, and it was just, again, just individual mistakes, leaving him, as free as a bird to waltz into the box and have a free shot goal. And we're back to square one again. We've reverted exactly back to where we were minute 0. We've got to try and break them down again, and we just didn't. So, frustration is the word. I wouldn't say it's too early to get too emotional one way or the other. We've still got 8 points, but there's an argument we could have won every game. And we've probably done enough to win every game, so we could have been right up there with you guys. But, we've not made our dominance and our performances count.
We've been in this league with you for this sort of third season. The first season we both were vying for the playoffs. We kind of came in on the last day in 6th. You, at one point, as you as you alluded to before, it looked like you were going to take over Sheffield United at some point, because you really had that momentum. Yeah, I think you beat Sheffield United away from home, and it was like, well, hang on a minute. And then you got beat off Coventry in a game that was at home at Boro. I think you drew the first leg, because I watched the full game, because obviously we were in the playoffs, and it just went, And it sort of felt at that point like Sunderland and Boro could make a real push for use automatic, us to get maybe in the playoffs on a more consistent basis, or get around the sort of top 8 and really solidify ourselves in the championship because of how well we've done. It felt like Boro were like, right, Carrick with a full season and a good start, it'll be fine. Last season, that didn't happen. For whatever reason, it didn't happen. You had the big win at Sunderland, but then I feel like your season was more summed up by the reverse game, where we were under Michael Beale and Rusin bags a goal where, let's be honest, the keeper should have had it. So then it comes to this season, and it's gone beyond probably the average time a championship manager has in charge, if we're completely honest, which is not a good thing. I'm not saying he should have less time, but it's not a good thing. But it means that the season's really important for him, because he's had almost a fast start where you can accept that he's not quite made the automatics for the fact he hasn't had a full season. Then he's had kind of a boring season, if you prefer. Then this season, the ambition will be to be better than that, potentially playoffs and further. How big is this season for him? Because if you end the season and you're not in the playoffs, like, where does that leave Boro, and where does it leave him?
Well, it could be quite interesting, to be honest, because I feel like right now we've got such a great squad. It feels like this is the culmination of 3 years of hard work, and this is probably just prior to Carrick as well. We had Kieran Scott in as our head of football for a while, and we've changed the way we recruit. And it's come from the top. It's been said by Kieran Scott himself. It's come from Steve Gibson, the owner. This summer has been all about retaining every single one of our assets and adding to it. And I think his first half season, he surprised all of us, with how we did in them first few months, getting as close as we did to second. Last season, I think he gets a lot of credit just because it was a completely different team with so many, new players that were coming in from different leagues who were very young and needed time to bed in. Obviously, it took us 8 games until we won a game last season. We were bottom. We were shocking to start with. So as I say, to get us 8th, I still think was very respectable from Carrick. However, he's got every tool at his disposal this season. You know, as I say, Gibson made it absolutely clear that our three big assets, being Lattilath, Rav Vandenberg and Hayden Hackney, were going absolutely nowhere. We could have cashed in on any of them at any point this summer. I think we had offers in for all of them, especially Lath. You probably heard the deadline day drama with Ipswich. And we had Kieran Scott on our podcast, actually. It's gone up today, and he mentioned that even if Ipswich had come in for Lattilath 2 weeks earlier, it was a flat no. You know, that was the stance. And I think it's because we see this season as the opportunity. You know, last year you had Leeds, Leicester, Ipswich, Southampton. I mean, it was a stupid standard. I think anyone would have been stupid to think that you could have got promoted last season. It was unlike anything we'd ever seen. Whereas I don't know if you agree from a Sunderland point of view, but I feel like the three have come down, aren't as strong, and this is a big chance to
I agree.
Get playoffs and maybe top two this season. So I think we've looked ahead and we've seen the stars align a little bit, and we've went, right, we're going to keep our assets this summer. We've retained them all. We've added extremely well, and I think we've probably got the most well-balanced all-round squad we've had since we got promoted last time in 2016. Youth experience. All the signings we've made, barring the two on deadline day, were permanent signings. So we've made a real effort to not lean on loans like we have done in the past. So this is the best Boro team I think I've seen in nearly a decade. So that aligned with a slightly weaker Championship, I think it's safe to say, yeah, we're going for it this season. And I don't think if we don't get up, we'll keep Lath. I think he'll be off next summer. Rav will probably be off. Hackney might be off. Who else who might perform well this season? We might see quite a few leave, and this golden period of what I think is a fantastic team might come and go. So this is the window of opportunity for me this season. I think playoffs are a minimum. I don't think Gibson would be the type to sack Carrick even if we don't make it, because I think he's just such a patient and he's an owner that's very dedicated and puts a lot of trust and faith in his managers, and that goes two ways. So I don't think we'll see anything drastic, but it would certainly be, I think I'm safe to say it would be a failure if we didn't get playoffs this season. I think that's how it's shaping up for us.
I think when you look at Gibson, like no one's not made mistakes when they own a football club, especially for as long as he has. But Steve Gibson's probably one of those only chairmen we have these days that's invested because he's a fan. There's not many that invest these days that are fans, and I think, you know, whether he has made mistakes, of course he has. He's done it with the right purpose. But you talked about your recruitment there. Now I've got to be honest and say I haven't watched a lot of Tommy Conway, but weirdly I've interviewed him twice because of my job up here with Scotland, and he seems like a very affable, confident lad. But when he spent $5 million, he had a year left on his contract. He played 2-ish seasons and he's not quite hit double figures yet. I thought, that's a bit of a risk that I wish Sunderland would take, but nonetheless, here we are. But he started well. He scored 2 goals. But I was speaking to Johnny before, obviously, from the Boro Breakdown, and he was saying he's playing more of a number 10. What kind of impression has he made? Because it's a big signing in the Championship, $5 million, no matter how you look at it, especially for someone who's got a year left on his contract and is still, 22 just turned, I think.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I was a bit surprised by the fee we paid, to be fair. I mean, I don't know how it's structured, but that again showed the intention that Boro have this season. It's been documented that if he'd had any more than a year left on his deal, we would not have had a chance of getting it done. So it was kind of now or never. And like a lot of signings we've made, we batted off quite a lot of competition. I think there were teams in the Premier League even looking at him. So we've done well to get him in. But yeah, we all thought he'd be a backup to Lattilath. And he might still be if Lath gets injured. Maybe Carrick will move him around. But while Lath's in the team, he has been playing as a 10. And I think what he's trying to do is reignite the Akpom Archer sort of relationship we had so much success with 2 seasons ago, where Akpom, who was a striker at the time, was brought back into that 10. And it was a revelation. Everyone in the Championship was going, Carrick has stumbled across a gold mine with this. However he found it, whatever he saw, the judgment to do that was unbelievable, because Akpom then scored 29 goals and went from, zero to hero. It was a redemption arc unlike anything I've ever seen at Boro. So I think he's trying to do something similar. And so far, Conway has been brilliant. He was our best player by a mile at the weekend. Technically, he's got all the attributes to play in that role. He's really good on the ball. His first touch is good. He can carry the ball. He brings others into play. He's just got that urgency of a footballer that I really like. He's always trying to make things happen. And we've seen at the weekend, he's a good finisher. He got played in behind by Ayling. And in a season where Boro have fluffed chance after chance, it was just nice to see a Boro player just put a 1v1 away without any sort of hassle, really. But looks like a good character. He's got all the attributes. He's a good finisher, technically good. And I'm very excited to see how he'll thrive in that role, because Carrick has got a very good track record of improving players. So although Bristol City fans were a tad salty when we signed him, I would say they were saying, he's just a penalty taker. He won't get in front of Lath, this, that, and the other. I think regardless, Carrick's going to improve him. So far, he's done really well. So I'm excited to see how he develops as that what we call the Tuber Akpom role now.
I think when you look at any kid he's just turned 22. I think last month he was chased by Rangers and Celtic as well. Obviously up in Scotland up here. Look, he went to the Euros as a late replacement. I get that, but you've got to have something about yourself, I think. And it's a player I would have quite liked Sunderland to have a bit of interest in. But here we are. But I noticed that there's players that you brought in, and normally when I've been doing these shows and you get to the transfer business, you've got 10 in, 14 out, and it's kind of worse in League One as it was. But there's not been a great deal of change. A lot of the players that you brought in, either some of them have been there last year, and there's not been a great deal out. Luke Ayling signed permanently, but you brought in the likes of Neto Borges, Tommy Conway, as we touched on, Micah Hamilton, and a guy called Aidan Morris, who's come in from the MLS. I'm not going to tell you I know anything about any of them. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. Which ones have shown up so far? Because it seems like you brought in a lot of younger players with a little bit of experience on top.
Yeah, the model at Boro has very much been to bring in young players with that sell-on value. It's bordered us really well over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, we made an absolute fortune off Morgan Regis, and he was only here 6 months. So it's a model that I'm really happy to see Boro working in. It's I think just us having assets in our back pocket it just helps keep things ticking long term. As for the players we've brought in this season, I think Luke Ayling was an absolute guarantee. He was so good when he came in. I think he got 8 assists between January and the end of last season, which was quite incredible. It wasn't we associated him as a defender and a leader, but going forward, he really surprised us, and he got another assist at the weekend. So we're really happy to have him in. As for standouts, Aidan Morris he's come from the MLS, and there's always a little bit of with the MLS, I'm never quite so sure about how players will adapt coming from the MLS.
Good or the shite, let's be honest. Either good or shite.
Yeah.
There's no in between.
and he has been absolutely sensational. He's been the midfielder I think we've wanted for a long time. We've spoke about a long-term replacement for Johnny Howson for years now, but he's so good. His passing, he barely missed plays. I think against Cardiff, he completed 67 of his 69 passes. And there were a range of different passes. His reading of the game's really good. He's so good at intercepting and detecting where the ball's going to be, and he's so good at pinching the ball off the opposition and winning the ball back for us. I think his chemistry with Hayden Hackney already is looking really exciting. And I thought this when I was looking at Sunderland's team. I looked at Rig and Dan Neil, and I thought, Rig and Neil, Hackney and Morris, that midfield battle is going to be, it's going to be really good to see who comes out on top. That's an exciting midfield battle. Obviously, we discussed Tommy Conway. Neto Borges was a left back. We were looking at a left back all summer really, but it was sort of we had to force that through because of an injury to Alex Bangura. And then the others are sort of squad players. Bergzog's a better impact player, I would say. Harley Hunt's a youngster, so can't really count him. Micah Hamilton's come in from City. He's going to need, I think, a good few months before he gets up to speed. And then the deadline day signings were just, Edmondson was just because we've got so many injuries at centre-back, but he come in from Ipswich and was really good at the weekend. And Ben Doak actually could be a player to keep an eye out on Saturday, because he wasn't a signing we were looking to make on the right-hand side, but he's one that cropped up. And he's one of them deadline day signings where, it just happens, it pops up and you've got to just go for it. And Boro beat, again, so many clubs for his signature. And he looks like an absolute live wire. So he's the perfect player to bring on late in the game. And I can see him coming on late on at the weekend. And depending on where the game is, he could be a game changer. So, yeah, that on top of, like I say, not many big names going out the door. Our squad's just kept the same core from last season, but we've added to it in the right areas. It's probably been one of the best windows I think Boro have had in a long time.
It's very interesting. Doak's going to be a really interesting move because there was 7 clubs after him on deadline day. I was working the deadline day and it was like, where's he going to go? And it was, I think it came down to Hull, weirdly enough, and Middlesbrough or something like that. And I thought, well, he's going to go to Boro, but tons of hype up here. Obviously, people don't know me. It was at Celtic, went to Liverpool, rated incredibly highly. He was part of the Euro 2024 squad. And unfortunately got injured. He's had quite a bit of injury and stuff like that. I'm kind of hoping that he isn't that good moving forward, but there's a lot of hype up here. Look, like let's be honest. You touched on 2 players before, though. I feel like I'm really happy with Sunderland as well. We're coming in on the back of a pain in the arse of a defeat against Wayne Rooney's Plymouth, which I'll say repeatedly because it really annoys me, but 4 wins from 5. Look, I'm happy. Like, the team's performing well. It kind of felt like a championship result to get beat off Plymouth. I've changed up the questions a bit this year. If you take any player from Sunderland, not just on who you think's the best, the one that you would take to put in the Middlesbrough team, who would you take and why would you take him?
Oh, that's a tough one, actually. Maybe Dennis Serkin as left back. I think
a good choice.
Yeah, he's a really good left back, and that's probably the only area of the Boro team currently where we're umming and ahhing a little bit. We don't quite know what we're going to get from there because we've been searching for a Ryan Giles replacement since he left on loan, and we've even tried to get him back so many times. It's never quite worked. But Lucas Engel, who come in, he's not started the season really well. Banguro get injured. So Neto Borges, and I think it says a lot about the lack of stability we've had at left back, that Neto Borges has just come straight in. You know, he signed the day before the Cardiff game near enough, and he comes straight in. He was in again at the weekend. But we haven't got a left back there that I think we can hang our hat on and say, yeah, we can rely on him to deliver what we need in the Championship every week. And just with the way Boro play, we have to rely heavily on the left back, both going forward and going back. And all of Preston's joy come from our left-hand side at the weekend. And that's just because our left winger who plays in front of Borges always cuts inside. Like if it's McGree, he'll cut inside, he'll roam inside. So your right winger, whether it's Roberts or your right back, whether is it Hume? There's going to be a 2v1 on our left-hand side. So we always we can be exposed there quite easily. So everywhere else, I'm happy, I'm set. I can rely on said player in that position. But if I could take one player out, I'd probably say Dennis Serkin, just I feel like he's that maybe a slightly more reliable left back at this level. But it's a tough one because, as I say, I'm really happy with Boro's 11, and I looked at your 11 as well, and I was like, wow, it's a good 11.
We had to feel very confident from both sides. Normally we're kind of like going, right, who's the worst at the minute and who's going to win? But the last 2 games have been, like at home especially, have been really odd games. The away games as well, to be honest. Like, go back to the first time we played each other, it was 1-1. 1-0, tell a lie, but Ross Stewart ripped his thigh and basically never really played again apart from 4 games in between that. We lost 1-0. Diallo debut that day, I think it was Riley McGree scored, and then the home game comes along. We played really, really well. It was probably that push that we had after, I think it was middle of January, where we won 2-0. There was a debate over the penalty and X, Y, and Z. I'm sure you've all forgotten about that. And then there was the game last year where, relatively even game, then Dan Neil said a naughty word and you completely punished the second half. Like, look, whatever we thought about the red card, that the second half, you did what a team should do against 10 men. And then I felt we were really poor at the Riverside, but somehow got a 1-1 draw. So I can't quite decide what my prediction's going to be for this weekend because it feels like it's not a predictable game. But I'm going to ask you anyway, what's your prediction?
Well, based off of how we've started the season, I can't see us keeping a clean sheet. And again, that's not because we're bad defensively. I just feel like we've just got mistakes in us. It's just really stupid individual errors. And plus, you guys are scoring goals for fun. So I just think it's going to be like a boxing match. I can't see this being a cagey chess match, 2 sides trying to work. I can't see that at all. I think it's going to be both sides just going at it, punch for punch. who's going to get the first knockdown, who's going to win on points at the end. I don't know. I just feel like there's going to be goals. And as I say, Boro, what I would say is this game suits us. We've not had many games like this season, but when we often do play against sides who are going to come at us, going to try and attack us and leave gaps in behind, that's when I think we come into our own and we're at our most dangerous. So I think you guys will have joy. I think we'll have joy, but I can't split either side. Just the form you guys are in at the minute, and I can just imagine the atmosphere at the Stadium of Light is going to be, it's going to be a very tough atmosphere for us. So I said on the Boro Breakdown 2-2. I went with a score draw. I'd take it. I'd take it. I think you guys are in a better position to maybe accept a draw at this point. I think we're not playing catch up, but we'd love a win just to feel like we're right back on track again. But given how you've started and the form of both teams, I'd say 2-2, and I'd be happy with that. But it's going to be a cracking game. I think we can guarantee that.
It's really weird. Like I'm not agreeing because you've said it. I was going to say 2-2. I feel pretty much everything you just said. I feel it's going to be a good game. Like I've just got like that feeling in my bones that the game's going to be a really good one, even for the neutrals. I'd like a win, of course. Like to get back to winning ways because I've got used to it this season, which is quite nice. And I feel like it's been a while since we beat at home, which is actually not true. It just feels like it has been. But I'll honestly say I would take a 2-2 as well. I think like it's not the worst result. It would have been better if we got a result last week, but look, you can't win them all. But yeah, 2-2, I think, with that. And I do genuinely feel like that, but I do have an absolutely shocking record with my prediction, so it's probably going to not be that. But Matt, thanks for joining. Good debut. I hope you have an awful Saturday. I hope it's one of the worst ones you've had in a while. I know. And I'm sure we'll reconvene later on in the rest of the year, mate. But thanks very much.
No, thank you for having me on, and enjoy the game to a certain extent at the weekend.
Back at you.
We'll see how it goes, eh?